The diet of the ancient Egyptians was largely based on grains, especially wheat and barley. Bread was a staple food and was often eaten with honey, as well as fruits and vegetables. The most commonly eaten fruits included figs, dates, and pomegranates, while vegetables such as onions, leeks, garlic, and lettuce were also popular. Meat was not commonly eaten by the majority of Egyptians due to its high cost, although it was consumed by the wealthy. The most commonly consumed meats were beef, goat, and pork. Fish was also an important part of the Egyptian diet, particularly in the Nile River Valley. Dairy products were also consumed, especially cheese and yogurt. Beer was the most popular alcoholic beverage in ancient Egypt, and wine was also consumed, although it was more expensive and therefore reserved for the wealthy. Overall, the diet of the ancient Egyptians was relatively simple, with most people consuming a diet based on grains, fruits, and vegetables. The availability of food varied depending on the time of year and regional differences, as well as social and economic status. As I mentioned earlier, bread was a staple food in ancient Egypt and was made from a variety of grains, including wheat, barley, and emmer. Bread was typically made in large communal ovens and was sold in markets or made at home. The type of bread consumed varied depending on social and economic status, with the wealthy consuming finer bread made from white flour, while the poorer classes consumed coarser bread made from whole grains. Fruits and vegetables were also an important part of the ancient Egyptian diet. Fruits such as figs, dates, and pomegranates were commonly consumed, as were vegetables like onions, leeks, garlic, and lettuce. Other vegetables consumed included beans, peas, and lentils, which were often cooked in stews or soups. Meat was not as commonly consumed by the majority of the population due to its high cost. However, it was an important source of protein for the wealthy and was typically consumed on special occasions or as part of a banquet. The most commonly consumed meats were beef, goat, and pork, as well as game such as antelope and gazelle. Fish was also an important part of the Egyptian diet, particularly in the Nile River Valley, where a variety of freshwater fish were abundant. Dairy products were also consumed, especially cheese and yogurt. Milk was used to make these products but was not commonly consumed in its liquid form, as it spoiled quickly in the hot climate. Instead, it was often fermented into yogurt or cheese, which could be stored for longer periods of time. Finally, it's worth noting that the ancient Egyptians had a sweet tooth and consumed a lot of honey and other sweeteners, such as dates and figs. They also enjoyed a variety of spices, including coriander, cumin, and cinnamon, which were used to flavor their food. Instead, it was often fermented into yogurt or cheese, which could be stored for longer periods of time. Finally, it's worth noting that the ancient Egyptians had a sweet tooth and consumed a lot of honey and other sweeteners, such as dates and figs. They also enjoyed a variety of spices, including coriander, cumin, and cinnamon, which were used to flavor their food. In addition to the foods I mentioned earlier, the ancient Egyptians also consumed a variety of other foods and beverages. One important food source was the lotus plant, which grew in the Nile River and was a source of food for both humans and animals. The lotus root was eaten boiled or roasted, while the seeds were used to make a type of bread or were roasted and eaten like popcorn. Another important food source was the date palm, which was cultivated in large groves along the Nile. Dates were eaten fresh or dried and were also used to make a sweet syrup called date honey, which was used as a sweetener in cooking. In addition to beer and wine, the ancient Egyptians also consumed a variety of other beverages, including a fermented milk drink called kefir, and a type of beer made from barley and breadcrumbs called busa. Water was also consumed, but it was often contaminated with bacteria and parasites, which led to widespread disease and illness. The ancient Egyptians were also known for their use of spices and herbs in cooking. They used a variety of spices, including coriander, cumin, and cinnamon, as well as herbs like parsley, mint, and dill. These ingredients were often used to flavor meats, stews, and other dishes. Finally, it's worth noting that the ancient Egyptians had a complex system of food taboos and restrictions. For example, they avoided eating certain animals, such as pigs, which were considered unclean. They also had specific rules regarding the preparation and consumption of food, such as the prohibition against eating meat and dairy products together. These dietary restrictions were often tied to religious beliefs and practices.